Hi, welcome back to the 3 Horse channel. This is David, and today I'm proud to announce the completion of the Village of Nulb map. This is the VTT map and a map that's printable for your D&D campaign for running the Temple of Elemental Evil. Now, I have 4 different resolutions offered on my Patreon. The normal version that I put on Facebook and my Discord is for anybody that can use in their campaign. It's free to use. It follows the Wizards of the Coast content policy, and you're welcome to use it for your campaign. The map itself I labeled with numbers, so you can actually key it yourself. It's also on my World Anvil website, which is public-facing, that follows the fan content policy, and all those numbers are keyed. So all the locations on World Anvil, all 55 buildings are keyed, but I'm currently rewriting them. As I do that, I'm going to add tags to the locations on the map, so that way you can click on the map and get to the articles. So it's an interactive map. I also have 3 more versions of the map that are a higher resolution. The largest map is 75 megabytes, which no VTT program will be able to handle. But some Dungeon Masters like to print it up and show it at the table in person. So I offer those maps on my Patreon for members only. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map, and I'll show you what I've done so far. I'm back down here. This is the full screen of the map. I want to make sure you can see everything. This map is the 10 megabyte version, because this is what I can upload onto World Anvil, which is the public-facing fan content for other Dungeon Masters to use in their campaign. This map is going to be interactive on World Anvil for you to use in your campaign. Now, all the locations on the map will be hyperlinked, so it'll be interactive to the articles written for this campaign. Right now it's not, because I just uploaded this map. I have 3 more versions of this map on my Patreon. It's free to members, so all you do is be a member and you can get any of those higher resolution versions of this map there. You can also support the project there too, and help me be able to expand this even more and head out to other villages like in the Gnarly Forest and the Wild Coast. But the standard resolution version of this map is freely available on Facebook, my Patreon, and my Discord channel. So you don't have to be a member of my Patreon to get it, because I follow the fan content policy for Wizards of the Coast. The World Anvil website is also freely available to use. Now, this map here is on World Anvil. It's not interactive yet, but you can look at it. This map is pre-numbered. I'm planning to make another version with actual labels of the shops and buildings, so that way you can print it up and just show it without having to bother using an interactive version. That way you can use it without having a connection to the internet. You have to have an internet connection to use World Anvil. Now let's go ahead and start in the top left-hand corner. This stream is the Imeridi Run. Imeridi Run runs from the south and flows north. The stream has water flow markers around boulders and things like that. Off the map to the south, it flows in from the east, and then from the northeast it curves around off map, but finally flows north past the cemetery and under the bridge to this intersection. Now, if it actually flows north, it becomes wider here. Past the bridge is navigable by flat-bottomed cargo ships. The pirates actually sail these. To the east is a bay, the cove, where there's more water coming into the cove from the swamp, from the Fens of Tor. It seeps in, filling up this cove with more water. The water source is not just from the river, but also from the Fens of Tor. Back to the river flowing north, past this bridge, you can see that that's where the merchant traffic goes up and down to get to Nulb. Now, on the west side of the bridge is 2 buildings. Now, number 5 is like a guardhouse where they challenge people coming along the road there. That road is different from the original T1 module area map. Since then, Living Greyhawk came out. I like to follow canon since the 80s. I used to work with TSR and conventions, and I've been working with Greyhawk for over 40 years. And I like to follow canon as much as I can, with the goal of expanding it, but keeping core to the solid foundation of the box set. Living Greyhawk did that too. In 2000, they wrote hundreds of modules. Now, back to what the box set is. Box set is a high-level overview of the campaign world. It has all the major cities, just enough information to run a campaign from. Geographic areas, streams, rivers, rocks, mountains, forests. and organizations like countries and things like that. It doesn't give you enough detail. It doesn't give you a lot of detail to this local area, like around the village of Hamlet. So the expectation was back in the day, they'd create modules to do this. They would flush out localized area for the module, and also other DMs did that too for their campaigns, but not all DMs have time for that. A lot of them will just run the module. The village of Hamlet's a good example. It flushed out that whole area, the whole small town, fully keyed. That way you can just run it. It's awesome. That's my intentions for this campaign. Every town within like 500 miles, fully keyed. With just like the village of Hamlet, every town, every shop, every organization, military, local lord and nobleman, the churches, everything. So that's what we're doing with Nulb. Nulb has 55 locations fully keyed on World Anvil that you can use in your campaign. Right now the map isn't interactive, but as soon as I start adding those links to these numbers, you'll be able to click on it and take you right to that article. Now for the road. The reason I brought this up is because that road going west off the map is the low road. And the map going south, then off the map, is the high road. Both roads go to the village of Hamlet. I know it's a little bit different from the original maps from the 80s because Living Greyhawk changed it. And Anna Myers on her map, she changed it. And so if you compare the two, it's different. And it's also more logical because, in the box set didn't have villages like Sheernab. So things changed, like the Greenway Valley and Kron. The landscape changed. And when she did that to her map, following what was created in Living Greyhawk, it kind of made it semi-canon. So it's hard to go against that. I agree with those changes because those are cool. If they didn't write those modules back in the day, if they didn't create these towns, then we'd be back at square one, having to create all this stuff from scratch. What I've done is I expanded all that 100 times because a lot of these modules only had a paragraph description of some places. There wasn't a lot of information. The maps were just sketches. They weren't done very well. But just enough to give you an idea of locations in the village or where it's at. And so that's what I've been working on, expanding it greatly by using the tools we have today. So that's why those roads are there the way they are. When they go past the guard station, they're challenged. Any adventurers or merchants going along the road, they're challenged by the guards there. And you can learn all about that by looking at the articles. Across the way is a Wainwright, for wagons, teamsters. Across the bridge. So location number one. The locations are the same as the Temple of Elemental Evil module. I make sure I try to keep it core as much as I can and still expand. So 1 is still the waterfront inn. And number 4 is the boatman's inn. Down here, number 3 is the disguised cleric, Canonist Yade, and sees a herbalist there, a herbalism shop. And number 2 is Otis's smithy. I made that into 2 buildings to make it look like more of a smithy. And also, as you can see, there's a lot of ruins. There's a lot of burnt out dwellings here because there was a big battle after the Battle of Emerald Meadows when the forces came sweeping in. There was a battle here defending the Temple of Elemental Evil before it was put down. They had an 18th level archmage fighting with them. If you look down south on the map, you'll see fireball marks from that battle 7 years ago. The reason I made those marks is because 18th level fireball, 18 hit dice, that has so much heat generated, it pulled the earth up like dimpled meadows. I got that idea from the Black Company series of fantasy books. And I'm a big fan of those books by Glenn Cook. Going back to the map here, I added a cemetery. This cemetery is old from the original foundation of Nulb before any of the uprisings of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And if you go north up the road here, there's a church here. Now that's a church to the Elder Elemental God, which is the original church from before the first uprising. The main faith of the Elemental God was kind of benign and neutral. It was the Temple of Elemental Evil that put a twist to it and made it evil. And this is supposed to be the original temple to worship that god in their own natural elemental way. But they got their own things going on that you can read about in the article. If you're a player, don't read them. There's spoilers in every article. And if you click on the spoiler, it'll open up the article and you can read the DM notes. The DM section's hidden by the spoiler button, just to let you know. I try to write these articles to be benign as much as possible for any player to read. That way you can use them in session reports. You just got to trust your players not to click those spoiler buttons. Okay, back to the map. Now the water, as you can see, is flowing in that direction. On the north end here on the bay are 2 fishing shacks, cottages. That's where the fishermen live. and they live off the ocean here, and they sell their fish at the market. As you can see, there's a fishing boat here actually fishing. I put cargo in all the boats. That way it looks like they're merchant boats making their deliveries to Nulb. Now, the pirates, the merchants, the merchant captains, the pirate captains, they do trade to supply the Temple of Elemental Evil. The Temple of Elemental Evil does not run in a vacuum. They get help from not only from divers and Verbabank, the nobles there, some of them, the evil ones, but they have a whole network of agents, including pirates and bandits, who bring in slaves, money, supplies, foods, everything the temple needs to grow, including recruitment. If you read the module, they're recruiting a dozen a week into Nulb to be recruited. Monsters and bandits. A lot of action is going on here, and they're desperately trying to keep it low key because they do not want the leaders of Verbabank or Divers or Greyhawk to get any whiff of the idea temple's on the rise again, because then they'll come to put a stop to it. So they're trying to do this through the guise of piracy and bandits. That's what they're trying to do. They're using the Nulb as a clearinghouse, a middle ground, trying to keep things down low. And that's why Otis is here and Canonus DeVay. They're trying to figure out what's going on behind the bandits and pirates. There must be some greater organization controlling all this, and that's what they're here for. And that's all in their articles too. Across the bay, in the Fens of Tor, I put ruins of a ship wreck from a battle, make it realistic. I put a trail through the swamp going north. That's a wood plank trail going through the swamp. You could probably put a hermit out there, like the B2 module. That'd be a good idea. Or a druid. You could do that yourself. I leave out some of these things open for other dungeon masters to use for their own campaign. There's a logman, woodsman cottage off to the east there. I got streams coming in to feed the farmlands. Nulb isn't known for its agriculture. It's more about sheep and chickens, but they do have small root vegetable fields here to supply the locals, which is pretty much being controlled by the bandit leaders and pirate leaders. And you can read all about that too. I added a windmill and a mill house, and I also added a wheel here, a river wheel, grind house here, farm. And also, if you go back to the middle here, is the marketplace. Now, I added a lot of roads. These roads were not in any map. Some of these roads going off to nowhere, to other farms. But I wanted to expand this map to be more realistic, to be organic, to be natural, to make sense. That way you can actually role play on the map in your campaign. And I added the actual marketplace. The module does say there is a marketplace there. I added a platform in the middle for announcements, village meetings, hangings, and floggings, and also added some stalls there for the merchants. Only bandit and pirate type merchants come here to sell goods, or the fishermen across the river. So that's what you're generally going to find here. And a lot of these buildings are burnt out or ruined from the war. And a lot of this ground is soggy, wet mess. I put a lot of road wear on the road, so with puddles of water to make it realistic. And if you and by number 4, this compound is like a gladiator pit and brothel. You can use that in your campaign if you want or not. I added that there. And off to the west, below the temple, is a whole bunch of shops and cottages for different places, like a pottery shop or a tailor. These people are not doing well. They're heavily oppressed and taken advantage of by the bandits and pirates. Now the road going west and then south curves along. It runs parallel to the river. That leads to the Temple of Elemental Evil. And this other road that goes southeast and then east actually curves up back to the northeast to Twilight Falls through the forest. So that's where that road leads to. And there are some small merchant activity, wagons coming and going, and also travelers along that road coming from the Wild Coast, and actually slavers too. So something to add as a dynamic to your campaign. It could be like a subplot quest. And a lot of these articles have these. You can just look them up and use them all you want. I put a lot of good ideas in these articles for a Dungeon Master to latch onto and use. Okay, so that's a preview of this map. Now this map is available on my Three Orcs Patreon for free and on Discord. You're welcome to come to my Patreon to support this project because it's continuing to grow through the Gnarly Forest and the Wild Coast and Selene Elves to the south and through Friarandi and Valuna. That way you can expand this into more of an epic sandbox type campaign that is like a blend of the Game of Thrones with the Temple of Elemental Evil. Joseph Block, he's the owner of Greyhawk Grognard YouTube channel. He has his own modules, and he has a module called the T0 module, which is another way to start the campaign. And he starts his adventurers at Narwhal, and his module takes you through the Gnarly Forest to finally get to the village of Hamlet. The way I start my campaign is I start them in the city of Urbabank. Go check out that video and that map. The thing is huge. The city is fully keyed, and a lot of things are going on there. And I like to start my players there because I like to run the Living Greyhawk modules in this campaign. That way, the players can make sure it ensures them to get enough to do before they get to the Temple of Elemental Evil, because they really need to be at least 5th or 6th level before going into that dungeon, or they're going to get slaughtered. In fact, Loris men at the bottom of the moat house will kill everybody if they're not at least 3rd level. And I never had a group successfully beat them. They usually just run for it or get captured. So that's something to think about too. But that's why I start my characters in the city of Urbabank, and Joseph starts his off in Narwhal in the Wild Coast. By the time they get to the moat house, they're 2nd level at least. And Thief might be 3rd level, because we're playing actual Dungeons and Dragons where they have different experience points to go up levels. And a Thief only needs 1,200 to get to 2nd level. So this is something to think about. If you want to come to my Discord, we're working on this every day. Every day we're working on this to where all day long I'm working on these articles and expanding it and going over every little organization and NPC and shop and location. We have Dungeon Masters collaborating to help build this out with the artwork and the maps and everything. And you're more than welcome to join us on Discord to help out. In fact, we have some Dungeon Masters actually creating some of these locations, these villages. The Dungeon Master working on Rhinehurst to the west, and I have others working on villages along the Velverdiver River up to the northeast. One of the Triad members from Divers would like to add his Diver city to this too. I'm just not there yet, but I want to get Nulb out first. This is the iconic, most important location in the entire campaign, Nulb, right outside the Temple of Elemental Evil. This got to be done. I already have the village of Hamlet done. I have Sheer Knob, which is 10 miles south of the village of Hamlet, and also Ostwerk, which is 20 miles south of the village of Hamlet, which is on the border of Selene, the fairy kingdom of the elves. And there's a lot of plots, a lot of quests going on down there, a lot of NPCs and things are happening. Because I run the Noble Ambitions module from Living Greyhawk to start my campaign off, where they have to go after the treasure that was lost during Battle of Emerald Meadows. And I also run another module called The Gift of Beauty, which is a gift being delivered to the Queen of Selene, Queen Yolanda. And that was taken on the border. Right before they got to the border, it was ambushed and taken. So the players are on that quest, and they're all at 1st level when they start this thing. So they're tromping through the entire Viscounty going after these 2 quests I got running, and plus the whole thing with the gnomes going on, that they got a lot to do. So it gives them plenty of experience points to get before they even get to Nulb. Because Nulb is deadly. They'll destroy any group that you can think of that come here. There's some very powerful NPCs here in Nulb, including the agents from the Temple of Elemental Evil. It's going to be a slaughter show if you send players here too soon. They got to be at least 5th level just to get to Nulb, minimum. So that's something to think about. There we go. Okay, so what do you think the map of Nulb? Now, are you planning to use this online on a laptop with the interactive features so you can instantly look up information while you're running the game? Or maybe you're going to run it on your VTT app with your online players, and you need a map to show on your VTT, and you can use different resolutions for depending on what VTT. Now, if you go to my Patreon, I have 4 different versions of the map of different resolution sizes. I got a 2 megabyte file, a 10 megabyte, 15, 25, and a 75 megabyte file, depending on what your VTT map is capable of using. And the higher resolution is sharper the more you zoom in. And also, the reason I made a bigger one is because that you can print it up. Some Dungeon Masters like to print up maps and hand it out to their players at the table. Soon, I'll create another version of that map with the labels so you can see what they're called without having to use an online interactive map system. Well, tell me what you think of this map so far. Do you think this raises the level of Nulb to make it a more fun and exciting campaign for your Temple of Elemental Evil campaign?
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
I look forward to hearing your comments, either here in the YouTube channel or on my Patreon or Discord. You're welcome to come there and talk to us. Now, this is a quick preview of the map so far, and as I build it out and create these articles, I'll continue with these update videos for you, that way you can follow along in the campaign. I'm bringing back traditional Dungeons & Dragons with the world of Greyhawk, one story at a time. Happy adventuring, and may your dice ever roll true.